The Republican-led House Budget Committee taking a step forward on tax reform, voting 22-14 to send a fiscal 2018 budget resolution to the full House. That would allow the Senate to pass a sweeping tax code overhaul without Democratic support. This comes just a day after the $4 trillion spending blueprint was unveiled. I spoke with House Ways and Means Committee Chairman Kevin Brady yesterday. Here's what he said on the tax reform timeline.
Let's get the policy right. Let's deliver this year. We still have some work to do, obviously, in all this, in the tax discussions. But again, I think people are going to like the boldness and the permanence of this.
Joining me right now is Ohio Congressman and member of the House Judiciary and Oversight Committees, Jim Jordan. Congressman, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good to be with you this morning.
So can you also confirm that? I mean, do you think that a budget can be passed by the entire House and then move to the Senate?
Not until we know what's more specificity about what's in the tax bill. Look, we want to, this idea that it's going to be revenue neutral, we're opposed to that. Many of us conservatives, we think that's just a fancy way of saying that the tax burden stays the same. You just shift around who pays what. And under that scenario, we know what happens. The connected class in Washington always gets a good deal, but middle-class families get a bad deal. So we want to have more specificity on what's in the tax proposal. We're all for tax reform and lowering the tax burden on families and creating a tax code that's conducive to economic growth, but we don't want this border adjustment tax, which is a whole new tax put on the American economy. We don't want that in the plan. So show us the plan, then we'll pass the budget if we're actually achieving the savings we need to and putting together the right kind of tax plan.
Well, many of your colleagues have said, look, they've been in meetings, they've been planning in terms of tax reform. Are you saying you don't know at all what's in the plan?
We don't have the specificity we need. Maria, think about what happened on health care.
Right.
We passed a budget before thinking that we were going to get a repeal bill and a replace bill, what the House Freedom Caucus introduced, a repeal piece of legislation that, frankly, I introduced, and then a replacement piece of legislation that Congressman Sanford introduced. We thought that was the plan because that's what we did in 2015. That's what we did in the last Congress. And we passed the budget that creates the vehicle to do this, and that's not what we get. We get this binary choice, this plan rolled out. We're not going to make the same mistake twice. We want to make sure that we're not doing a tax reform that has a whole new border adjustment tax that we put on the American economy in this plan. We want to make sure that tax reform is the right kind of tax reform that lets families keep more of their money, that creates a tax code on the corporate side that's conducive to economic growth. Show us that plan. Let's put that plan together, then we can work on passing the budget. But until then, I don't think it'll pass.
So you don't want to hear anything about revenue neutral. What do you say to the skeptics who say, look, you can't cut taxes for everybody and cut the amount of revenue coming into government so much and add to the debt?
Well, you got to cut spending. That's also part of this budget. This budget increases.
Where are you going to cut, Congressman? I mean, we know 2/3 of the money is all toward the entitlements. Where are you going to cut?
The first place you start is welfare reform. Right now, for our economy to hit 3%, you guys know this, for our economy to hit the 3% growth rate we need to deal with a $21 trillion debt, you got to move people from the welfare rolls, people who aren't working, you got to move them into the workforce. We got the lowest labor participation rate since World War II. We have it right now. Only 61% of able-bodied people who should be working are actually working. So that's one thing you have to do is the welfare reform, which will help our economy, which will help our overall budget numbers. But most importantly, it will help people who are trapped in the welfare system, stuck in the system. It'll help them get to a better position in life if we impose good, strenuous, tough work requirements in order to receive those kind of benefits.
Yeah, but you know what people are going to say. Once you give somebody an entitlement, they don't want to give it back, and you can't take it back.
Yes, you can. Maine's done it. Alabama's done it. The headline 4 weeks ago in Alabama, they imposed work requirements, put in work requirements for able-bodied people in the food stamp population. They saw an 85% reduction in that, and you see people move on to better positions in life, actually get employment opportunities, get jobs, and move on, help themselves and help their families.
I hear you.
That's what we got to do.
I hear you, but are you ready for the onslaught of criticism from your colleagues on the left? People will die. Children will die when you cut Medicaid. The
left always says that because the left believes in more government and more government and more government. So we got to just do what the American people want us to do. This is an 85% issue, which tells you a lot of Democrats support this issue as well. So this has got to be the focus. This is where you begin to save money. But we should be focused on letting families. Since when, this whole revenue neutral concept, since when did Republicans and conservatives say, oh, allowing people to keep more of their money is a cost to government? Really? I thought it was allowing them to keep their money because it's their money in the first place. So let's focus tax reform around those objectives and those goals. Put together the best plan we can. Let's see it before we pass this budget. so that we know we're doing the right thing.
All right, I get you, and I want to ask you about that because this whole thing has to do with the entire agenda. But first, you mentioned even Democrats agree with this. There's a new Fox News poll out that shows that 33% of voters are extremely frustrated with Republicans in Congress. That is up 11% from August of 2014.
Yeah.
How does the party come together? So far in this administration, the agenda has stalled. I mean, I understand that you want to be adamant, no revenue, neutral situation, and part of me agrees with you, by the way, because people just want to see taxes come down. They don't want to hear about this border adjustment tax or revenue neutral anymore. But at some point, can you still stay and be that adamant, Congressman, when you know that if you don't get anything done, your whole party loses? Yeah.
It's not being adamant. We make this job way too hard. The job's pretty basic. Do what you told the voters you were going to do. Do what you said.
Yeah.
We told them we were going to reform the tax code. Let's do it. We didn't say we're going to keep the tax burden the same and just shift around who pays what. We didn't tell them that. We said we're going to cut your taxes and put together a tax code that makes sense. On Obamacare, we told them we were going to repeal it. We're not repealing it. Even the bill that I supported, we fought long and hard in the House. We conservatives opposed to many things, changed many things, had a big debate. But ultimately, we supported the health care reform that passed in the House. It's not complete repeal. So we're willing to compromise. But where you start is real simple. What did you tell the American people you were going to do? When they gave you the privilege to come here and serve them and their families, do what you said you would do. Do what they sent you here to do. If you focus on that, we'll be fine. Well, unfortunately, we haven't had enough focus on that.
Maybe we should start calling the people out, your colleagues, who are not doing what they said they were going to do. Because the truth is when you guys can't get anything done, it's a mark on all of you, not just one person who says he's not doing what he said he was going to do. So you've got who's got the target on their back then? Who's not doing what they're supposed to be, what they told the voters they would do? Paul Ryan?
Yesterday, we just started, the House Freedom Caucus just started the process to bring up the clean repeal. We said, look, if this thing is going to fall apart in the Senate, and we hope it doesn't, we hope it gets back together and they can actually pass something. But if it's, we're going to start the process, what we call a discharge petition. We're going to start gathering signatures to bring up the clean repeal, the very same piece of legislation we put on President Obama's desk 1 year, and a half ago. Let's take that same legislation, put it on President Trump's desk. We know he'll sign it. In fact, he tweeted out a couple weeks ago, do the clean repeal. Then we got time to put together the replacement that we need to. In fact, that's what we thought the plan was going to be when we started this Congress. So we started that process yesterday with the discharge petition. We're going to keep working on that, gathering the signatures, and hopefully getting that to the floor of the House.
I got it.